All right, guys. Well, we are back to part two of the CPP Mini subframe and coil over and all that installation. And last time I had an issue with a little bit of an alignment issue with the brackets on the subframe itself. I talked to the company, no problem. They gave me a tag. I sent it back. They sent me a new one. It's all good. That said, it's been 2 weeks till tomorrow. It'll be 2 weeks since I got it. And I apologize for not getting done any quicker, but my nose has just been running like a faucet, and it's finally to the point now where it's just barely not running now. So that's why I haven't actually gotten around to doing it, because when it actually came in on Sunday, it came out, I looked at it, yeah, looks good, done. I wasn't going to mess with it. So I'll get right back, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to get right back to it. I'm going to go ahead and take that new one and show it to you. See, yep, yes, brand new one in the bag. I have not opened it up, but I did look at it and lines up perfect. Just the looks like on the other one is just the, stuck in the jig crooked or something. It happens, but again, things like that happen. But if the company takes care of it, that's great. That's all I can ask. And so far, no complaints at all. I'm very happy with the suspension setup. So let me get this back on here, and we'll try to catch back up to where we were before. All right, well, I apologize for not having a nice free area to put things in, but set it up, but it's just stuff everywhere. But next step, after getting that subframe back on, I've got the lower control arm mounted onto one side, so I'm going to demonstrate right now. So the next step is going to be upper control arm, the shock coil over thing. It's a shock, the coil goes over the shock and that kind of stuff. So if you're not aware, these are Viking, made by Viking. It's a very nice product, really nice. No complaints at all with that. Really nice looking stuff. I really like their rear shocks. I'd love to do their rear shocks. Probably not going to though, but I would like to have them. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mount this upper control arm onto the car, this big beefy heavy thing. Now it's going to be loose on the car, so it's going to move around, and you see things that just go like, that's like out of place, and it's not straight. That's because it's not tight, because these use a nut that is a lock nut, a standard metal type lock nut, not an eye lock. And I'm not going to run that down and tighten it up in just for setting this up. And it's a fine thread bolt, and I do not have regular nuts to just put on there loosely, so that's why this is going to move around in there when I get it up there. So I'll get this mounted on here. You don't need to see that. It's just mounted. It's 2 bolts, not a big deal. Now when it comes to the coilover, there are some things you need to do on the coilover. If you'll notice, there is one adjuster here, and there is a lock ring. Well, this has a nice little sleeve that the spring sits on. Now, when you put this onto your car and you're, not just mocking it up like I am, all these threads, you want to run these adjusters up. You want to run them up here, and you want to coat all of this aluminum with anti-sneeze, and just run it down, run them back down, and just, gob it up really good with anti-sneeze. The reason for that is this is all aluminum. And once you get this on the car and you've got, a spring load on there, and you go to tighten this up and adjust it, if you don't have the anti-sneeze on there, it is going to gall up these threads and ruin your expensive little shock in no time. So that is a must. You've got to do that. I've seen what happens when you don't, and they get pretty chewed up. So when this goes on the car, it also comes with a Torrington bearing. And if you're not familiar with what a Torrington bearing is, that's what it is. It's a roller bearing on its side. And it's got 2 washers. And this you'll also want to goop up as well, because you don't want moisture and stuff to get in here. And again, we're not doing daily drivers. So, things like this, it's okay. It's not a big deal. People are going to say, well, water gets in there. It's not a daily driver. You're not going to run it through the car wash. It's not a big deal. Don't just drive it and enjoy it. So now this little guy, this has got to go on here first before your spring. The reason that this is on here is that when this spring is on, you put this right here, and you want to go to adjust these nuts, look how nice and easy that is. And then if you put a bunch of pressure on this with the spring, think how much harder it would be if you didn't have that Torrington bearing in there. I mean, that's beautifully. It just moves beautifully. So I'm going to get to putting on this upper arm, and then I'm going to bring this coil over there and talk about the few issues and gotchas about it. All right, so a couple little things you need to be aware of. Now that we're back over here at the car, I've got my upper control arm mounted up here. Kind of just stuck it up out of the way for the moment. Now, these lower control arms use a Chrysler ball joint, which you can tell by it has these 4 little flats, and this actually screws into this little collar right here. This is a really common thing to use on dirt track cars and things like that. They've been using Chrysler ball joints for years because they're very strong ball joints. You can put them in with a pipe wrench. You shouldn't, but there's a socket that actually goes on here that you can use to put them on here. However, one of the problems you end up with when you have a Chrysler ball joint when you're using something else, and I've run into this years ago with GMG bodies and things like that, trying to do stuff there. I had a little part in my hand that didn't exist back then. But the difference is when you take this part right here, you get all these extra little washers on here. You won't use all these washers. They are here for more than one application. But on the lower ball joint, there's a taper on here. Well, this taper is not the same between GM, Ford, and Chrysler. Everybody uses something a little different. And then depending on the car too, if it's a bigger, heavier car, it'll be a larger shaft with possibly a different taper as well. Unfortunately, you know, some suspension company couldn't just say, hey, everybody use this. So we have this little part right here. And this is just a tapered sleeve. And this adapts this taper here to the taper on the control arms. So this is very important that you do not lose these, because you got to have them. So this just slides right down over top of the original. Obviously it's going to get pushed up because the boot's in the way. Oh well, not a big deal right now. So I'm going to put that on here. I'm going to get this extra stuff out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and grab our lower control arm. And this is one that I painted a while back. Looks kind of pretty. So I'm going to slide that guy on here. And I will stick on a washer. Actually, I don't even think I need a washer on this one. Yeah, I don't even need a washer on it. Now I am not going to torque this on here because this is coming right back off. So this is just loosely on here just for show. And it's all going to drop down now. So that's all going to go down there. And that's all good. That's fine. So we go over and grab the rest of the parts. All right. Here's our shock again. And I've got our spring over here. And unfortunately, I don't have anybody to hold anything or anywhere to put anything. So I'm going to set that over here for the minute. The way this little guy mounts is with these 2 little knobs out. These are your adjustments for your compression and rebound. So I'm going to pull this guy back down, get him down here. He mounts on just as usual. So where this goes is we take our spring, slide our spring over there, pretty self-explanatory. You got to figure that out, you got bigger problems. And I'm going to go ahead and pull the shock out. And I'm going to go ahead and line this guy up in here. And set it down. And then go back and get the bolts because I forgot them like an idiot. Not enough fingers and hands. So get rid of all that stuff I don't need for the moment. guy up a little bit. Just get a nut started on here. All right. So I know that looks pretty simple. It's like, oh, hey, it's right there. Well, we've still got to deal with the top of the shock. So I'm just going to go ahead, mount this little guy on here. Not that it matters on this type of suspension, because this is all backwards and upside down on this car. It's just the way somebody designed things. Okay, so now we're here. If you'll notice, I'm going to give this a little shove, and I'm going to see where that ends up at. If I had a helper, then we would see where this ends up at. I don't have one of those, so let me move things around. All right, well, I've enlisted the help of Bunge E cord. It's here, and we've got it mounted on here. Now, I do not have an isolator up here. I do have the Torrington bearing here, and so we are still a little bit loose in there right now. But you can see how that mounts on there essentially. To me, it just looks so goofy because it's a weird suspension. Not really sure what Ford was thinking back then, but it was interesting. So the issue I come up with is, you can see we're here, we got this here, got that there. This adjuster is all the way down. We come around over here, and yeah, it doesn't quite stick up far enough. I am assured by the manufacturer, as well as others, that once I put some weight on the vehicle, that I can pull this up, it will compress up, and you'll be able to get that pin in and get that mounted on there like you should. Ideally, personally, I've used these type of things before. What I would have liked to have seen was been a shock used that had this shaft to be about an inch longer, because that's about, actually maybe over an inch, but if it was 1 inch longer shock, I would be much happier with the arrangement, the way that's set up. Let me pause for a second. Okay, so the reason that I would like to see that shaft 1 inch longer is because I would like to put a pad in here. And yes, there is a little bit of a gap in here right now, so some of that's going to be taken up, but you're already sitting almost tight at the back side right now. So, you know, once that spring flattens out, you're going to be, oh yeah, another 1/8 inch up, because that's going to actually twist a little bit. Whatever. But I would like to see that an inch longer, to where it actually would come up, sit up here without any issues. Because, say when you go to lift your car, you pick it up off the ground, I don't want any more pressure on, you know, because your pressure is pushing down on here, but now your shock has become your upstop, essentially. So I would personally like to see that a 1 inch longer shaft. That's just me. You know, the shock guys may say different, but that's just my take on it. So do that with what you want. I will be doing, once I get this car on the ground and I get this all figured out, I will be making an upstop, bump stop to go on here. Or technically it's a down stop for the arm, but an upstop, yeah, whatever. Or it could just be my nose is still dripping, and you know, so whatever. I want to make a stop so it has a positive stop down here, so we're not relying on that when we go to pick the car up. Because if you when you have to tighten this up some, you're going to be putting even more pressure on that, and basically that would be pulling the center of this out of the shock. So it's a personal thing. I would just like to see it that way. I'm sure it's going to be perfectly fine, but that's just me. But that's about all I can do for getting this on the car at the moment. I have no complaints with the kit. It gets rid of that horrible strut rod in the front that I hate. I'm not a fan of the suspension. You know, there's guys out there that love it and mod it and put all sorts of fancy stuff on it. When I look at it from a geometry point of view, I don't like it. This at least gives you a real lower control arm. It gets rid of some of the goofy geometry that you get from a strut rod. Um, it still has the shock and spring in the wrong place, but you know that you'd have to go with a different kind of suspension entirely. So would I buy this kit again for another car? Yes, I would. Um, would I buy these exact shocks again? I don't know, and that's because these are adjustable, and we'll just have to see how that works out in the end and when the car's actually driving. There are non-adjustables, and there are instructions in there. Read the instructions on the adjustables to learn how to get it adjusted for your driving, because you don't want the thing bouncing up and down like those cars you see on YouTube, you know, with worn out shocks. It's not safe. So, you know, read the instructions really good on that. Do your homework on adjusting shocks before you start, you know, messing with that. So the one last thing that I will have to mention is this top piece here. If you notice, there's not a pin going through it. So what you have to do is go get the pin. Okay, so on this pin deal, and I did show this before in the previous video and some pictures. As you can see, like right now, there's no pin in there. There's no pin, and it is about that far low. So you can see it's sitting about there. Let me put this camera down. Okay, so as you can see, you know, that's way down there right now, and it needs to be up on top of the floor. Gravity and I need to have a discussion, but anyway, you know, so that needs to actually end up there, and that's what I'm talking about. That I'd like to see that a 1-inch longer shaft in there. There may be some other issues with compression on that, but anyway, to get this thing through here, there's two ways you can do it. Is when you put this car down on its on weight, and you're able to push it down, you could have this piece off of here, let this come up, and then weave that. You know, I already have this put together, and then weave this thing around there and get it on. Or the other route that I'm planning on going is I'm going to go ahead and have all this put together. These are temporary bolts. I don't have the right ones because I can't find them. I don't know where they are. But I'm going to go ahead and let this get weight on it, let this come up, and then I'm going to take this little guy here, and this has snap ring grooves on it. So go ahead and put one on there before you start. Put some kind of lubricant on there in this rubber piece, and then you'll want to press that into it and then set it down, put another clip on there. I'll talk about that, you know, one of these days when this car actually sitting on the ground and I'm able to do that. So that's going to be a mystery thing to take care of at this point. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I may do it one way on that side and a different way on this side, and we'll just see what works the best. But this is my only thing that I just kind of have an issue with. Like I said, it could just be me. So it's not an issue that's going to kill it. It's not a deal breaker. It's just something that I would have done differently. So, all right. Well, that's just kind of another overview of it. I don't think I can. Okay, here we go. It's just weight. It's holding it now. So as you can see, it all fits on there really nice. It's really nice suspension. I really do like it. And I will be doing a video in the future where the oval holes that are in this front arm up here for adjustment, I'm going to be duplicating this in the back, because on the 65s and 66s, they didn't have that. Later cars did. So I'm going to basically replicate this, what there's here, back here, and we'll be doing adjusting plates back here. So that way we've got a wide range of adjustment for any screw-uppery that happened, you know, in the meantime of building all this, because you never know. So um, yeah, that's kind of it. It's this is kind of just a rushed one and late, and I apologize for taking forever. My nose is still dripping. It's almost stopped, but it's still very annoying. Uh, but if you got any questions on it, comments, um, yeah, leave them down in the comments. That's what it's for. So I appreciate you watching, and maybe we'll get to doing some dash painting and interior painting on the next one. Maybe. I don't know yet. We'll see.